It means they were suffering so much that even when they went to the mosque for congregational prayer, shots would be fired at them from above.
Dusty cemeteries, white flags, and the traces of the martyr's blood.
She was feeding her child milk when bullets suddenly struck. She was wounded and became a martyr. My mother has been martyred. They martyred both Mahmoud Idris and Muhammad Aziz in these fields. The raid came and they martyred them.
Martyred mother. This is the Mosahi district of Kabul, where tall and dignified mountains stand like the pillars of nature. The mud houses, like the hearths of warm hearts, are hidden in the shadows of the mountains. Green fields, like vivid dreams of hope, pass before the eyes. And in their midst lies a lush, green meadow, like a piece of paradise, as if nature has poured all its artistry onto a magical carpet. This is a spectacle of nature that not only delights the eyes but also soothes the soul. Mosahi is one of those districts that, in addition to its natural beauty, is known for its people's sincerity, love, hospitality, selflessness, sacrifice, and devotion. Here, every season has its own unique charm. Spring is scented with blooming flower buds, while winter is wrapped in a white blanket of snow. Mosahi is the translation of our sorrows and the promise of our hopes. The foothills here are not only green but also bear witness to the sacrifices of history. Let's journey to the heart of this land, where the mountains speak of the cruelty and terror of invaders. Their shadows carry untold stories, and the scorched meadows reveal hidden truths. This very meadow, once a playground for children, was turned into a place of silence and mourning for 2 decades. This is the Mosahi where, with every heartbeat, echoes the cry of a martyr. Its heart has been wounded many times, yet today it still longs for life. And waves of joy ripple across the lips of its people. But behind every smile lies an untold story. The tear-filled eyes of martyr's father, the patience and endurance of a widow, and in the tearful eyes of an orphaned child, a world full of living hopes. The 20-year occupation was so brutal for the people of Mosahi district, fear of night raids and gunfire, that they couldn't breathe in peace for even a moment, constantly living in. And even the mosque's imam couldn't enter the house of Allah, the Exalted, with a sense of security to perform prayers.
It means they were under so much torment that when they went to the mosque for congregational prayer, shots were fired at them from above. When they fired, even a boy got wounded, but God protected him, and the next congregational prayer was held safely by God's grace. The bullet marks are no longer visible on the veranda. After sunset, we could no longer roam here. After that, we couldn't walk around. Two people could not walk together on the same path. Two people could not sit together in one place. At home, whenever shooting started, all the children would rush into the rooms. They fired so much that they said, "Tomorrow all these people will be dead." But when tomorrow came, God had kept them all alive, protecting them from the bullets. They themselves told the people that, "We said all these people will be dead, but God had kept them alive."
Abdul Sattar began the untold story of his martyred daughter-in-law. A dark, silent night. One small room. A baby's cry, and the bone-chilling echoes of gunfire tearing through the heart. My daughter-in-law held her little one close to her chest, nursing him, softly humming a lullaby to put him to sleep, when suddenly, a scream. A single "Ak" that erased the distance between life and death. A mother who was giving life to her child through her pure milk, suddenly. The mother's wounded body fell to the ground. But the baby's cries did not stop. He cried, but this time not for milk, instead, for his martyred mother's red blood and lifeless body. This was not just a mother's scream. It is the memory and tribute of thousands of screams unheard by anyone. And the story of those killings that remain a dark stain on the pages of history.
I have another daughter, she was also with her in that room. She had fallen right there, and when she fell, she cried out loudly. The girl who saw this ran back to that room. I have two wives. She told my elder wife that, "My sister-in-law has fallen." They ran toward her, the situation was very bad. Bullets were coming like sticks, loud bangs and crack sounds hitting the houses. When they came, they saw this. She was hit in the head by a bullet from a machine gun. This is the window. A bullet had entered that wooden porch. We called Sardar's place. Our vehicle was not there. Their vehicle was there. Thank God Faizullah came and brought the vehicle. We carried the wounded. From that place, the funeral was taken 6 or 5 times back and forth. At the outpost, they fired some shots with a KPV and a machine gun. It was heavy fire. That vehicle forced him to reverse back to this door.
A few houses away was the home of relatives. They were talking and stepping outside their rooms to help. A guest had also arrived, a woman, the wife of Abdul Sattar AKA's nephew. But grief breeds even more grief, and suddenly, they too became the target of a stray bullet. With a crack, the visiting woman was shattered into pieces, falling to the ground.
Our mother had come to visit our aunt. It was late in the evening there. Almost very late, we didn't know exactly because I wasn't there at the time. There was a woman, a relative of ours, who was wounded. She had been hit and reached martyrdom. She had called our aunt's husband telling him, "Come, this woman has been wounded." She had said this inside the house and then went out. Our mother followed her outside. When she went there, whether the woman was with her or not to help. As she reached in front of the upper room, a mortar shell hit there, and our mother was martyred. As they came out toward the courtyard, a mortar shell come from the outpost and exploded inside the house. There was a guest from a local, who is the wife of my nephew. She was martyred right there. My nephew's daughter was also injured like this. God has kept her alive in this world. Otherwise, she would have been completely wounded.
The Unus never leaves his orphan nephew's side. He is still so young that he doesn't understand the pain of losing his mother. Nor does he have the blood-stained image etched in his mind. But his uncle narrates the story of that incident as follows. They wait late into the night, hoping to hear news of his sister's martyrdom or recovery. But throughout this long wait, the dark veil of night slowly folds away from the earth. And finally, the first light of dawn breaks with the news, your sister passed away.
When morning came, around 3:30 a.m., we received the heartbreaking news that our sister had been martyred. Come down, they said. We quietly made our way along the edges of the walls, careful not to attract attention. And when we looked, there she was, our sister, lying lifeless on the bed.
From a martyred sister, only one sign remains after 2.5 years of marriage. Her child, whose eyes ripple with a world of sorrow.
But she was just a woman, not a fighter, not someone who went out to battle. If she had been a man, her role in the conflict would have been clear, and perhaps her martyrdom would have been expected. But she was innocent, with no part in the fighting. At that moment, she was simply feeding her child milk. Then the bullets came. She was hit, wounded, and became a martyr. There was no guilt or fault in her. She was caring for her child, and yet was martyred. My mother has been martyred. After this incident, our mother hasn't been well in her heart. My father is the same, he hasn't been sleeping well. His heart is wounded because his daughter was martyred. Since then, he has been constantly sad and unwell. Whenever he sees the child, he becomes even more distressed.
During the course of life, some moments come that leave a deep and lasting impact on a person due to a painful event. A mother, an embodiment of love, sacrifice, and bravery, called her son in the morning. Son, I am going to visit your aunt, take care of yourself. This was the last connection, the final voice, the last love. Night fell, and the hardships of the 20-year occupation war took her life. Her son, having heard the news of the tragedy, did not come home the next day from Tizen but went straight to Uncle's house. There, an unfamiliar silence prevailed. They tell him, your mother has been wounded, we are gathering information. The son's heart breaks, his eyes filled with hope. Yet a shadow of worry spreads across his face. A few hours later, his entire world changed. The funeral procession arrived, and tears, grief, and despair consumed everything.
When they brought the coffin into the house, there was almost a 4-year-old sister there. She was our youngest sister. From that mother, we were 3 brothers and 1 sister. She cried out loudly, even my younger brothers cried loudly. My father, who was older, sat down and told me, son, your mother has been martyred. What was hardest for me was that when I was in prison and my mother used to come to me, all the hardships she endured with me came back to my mind. Because of these hardships and tiredness, and the fact that in the house there was no one left called mother, it was a very difficult scene. My sister cried out loudly, no one could take her place as a mother. This was a very hard moment for us.
Mud walls, green windows, and in front of them stands a man. Gazing at one particular window, a simple green window. That witnessed a scene of martyrdom and daily holds the wounded condition of his sister-in-law. He says, a bullet entered through this very window and turned the springtime of our family's life into autumn.
I had a sister-in-law who had 2 small children. It was the blessed month of Ramadan, the 27th day of fasting. There was a raid here. The fighting was right in front of the army post. Along this route there was a post nearby, and when the fighting started, we would gather the children to one side. This poor woman lifted one child, and she was holding another small child in her arms. As soon as she took a step, a bullet came, machine gun fire. Poor thing, she was holding the child in her hands. God saved the child, but only one cry escaped from her lips. When we arrived, she was targeted.
Every home in Mosahi holds a similarly heart-wrenching story. Night raids, the terrifying sounds of gunfire, the dropping of blind shells, and the sharp bullets of rocket launchers that pierced the eardrums of the people.
There was no certainty about the timing. We never knew if there would be fighting at a certain hour or if they were just planning. For example, in the field, even if it was morning, suddenly the fighting would start there. If the team was in the field, the cattle would remain in the field, and the crops would stay there as well. We were stationed in the trenches and couldn't move. Suddenly, the fighting would start, and all the bullets from the machine guns would come toward our house, which is up on the hill. When they fired from that side, all the bullets would settle right here.
Even when evening came, the villagers could not sleep, not out of fear, but because of pain, longing, and prayers for deliverance from the cruelty and horror of the occupiers. Because the occupiers would raid every night, battering down doors with artillery, frightening children in their sleep, dragging away the elderly people, and wounding the chests of young men with the rifle's muzzle. When we asked Spin Ghoul about his brother's martyrdom, his eyes filled with tears, and tears streamed down his white beard. A deep sigh escaped his mouth, and he began his story through those very tears. It is dark, but Spin Ghoul still tends to his martyred brother. He sees the bullet wound on his head. Blood dried on his shoulder. With these words, his eyes once again fill with tears, shining as if those old wounds are still fresh.
He said, "We killed your brother." I asked him, why? What crime or sin had he committed? He said, he had taken our gun. Just then, a scream came out of me. He hit me with a stick. I landed on my foot. He hit me here. This interpreter, I didn't understand. Then he hit me too. I said, I was hit with a gun stock. I fell down. It must have been 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Whatever it was, I was unconscious. At this time, it was time for prayer. He said this, saying, "You will not go. If you are afraid that it will be light, then everyone will go home and go ahead." He said this and then left. When they left, I went to my brother and stopped. I put my hand on his arm. It was dark. He was wounded in the head and fell to the ground. His blood had dried up. I thought his skin would be like this if he was stabbed with a spear. I fainted there and didn't see him again.
The more we paint the picture of pain, the more sorrows emerge. We had not yet fully absorbed this tragedy when another grief was freshly remembered. One that had set ablaze the lives of 3 innocent members of a family in blood.
All the women had told him, his mother had told him, my children had even come out of the room saying to him, "Don't go." He said, "No. There's nothing with that." He took the parachute, took the things, and left. I heard a voice saying, "Stop." Idris had taken a little run from him. He had released water here secretly. He was standing with his head down. They had shot Idris in the first shot, and had wounded him badly. He had shot my nephew in this place. In this fire, he had also shot one shot, and Idris, who was there, had run. I heard the voice saying not to run, so they were either taken alive or martyred.
Aziz's father was martyred by the invaders in 2006, but his brother does not remember that moment because he was still very young. However, he tells the story of his brother Aziz's martyrdom like this.
Around 1398, 2019, when it was his turn to get water at night, he went to fetch water. When I went outside, another person named Idris was with him. Suddenly, there was a raid, and they were martyred. A lot of oppression has been done to us because we were left orphaned by our father. Then, when we grew up a little, our older brother told us that after our father, when we understood right from wrong, they also martyred our brother. Because there was no head of the household and we were poor. We were forced to work and left education behind.
Alongside other ordinary people, farmers have also been deeply wounded in heart and soul by the cruelty and terror of the 20-year occupation. Idris, who was watering his fields late at night, quenching the thirst of the parched crops, suddenly became a victim of an enemy raid and lost his life.
The stream water was coming, and it was our turn. It was night, and it was our turn to fetch water. Muhammad Idris and Muhammad Aziz were fetching water. At around 2 a.m., there was a raid, and both Muhammad Idris and Muhammad Aziz were martyred in these fields. These are his sons, this is the elder son, and this is the younger son.
His two rosy-cheeked young sons now sit beside Ahmad Khan, right by the edge of that same field where the invaders stole their father's season of life. Muhammad Idris was his father's only son, and after his death, 5 children were left orphaned, without a guardian, alone, and vulnerable. With the help and cooperation of the villagers, they have been cared for and raised after his passing.
May God accept the martyrdom of their father. He was martyred during the time of the Russians. He left behind 1 son and 2 daughters. Then when this son grew up, he got married. A few years ago, he was martyred here. There was a raid at night, and he was shot. He left behind 5 children, all small and alone. He was the only one taking care of the household. He was doing farming. The poor man was martyred at around 1 or 2 o'clock in the night.
The scars of some tragic events never leave the heart's embrace. Islamuddin, whose father was the muezzin of the village mosque and was martyred in an ambush by the occupiers during the prayer call. He still carries that pain on his face, the pale shadow of orphanhood etched deeply across both cheeks.
He used to go for the evening, Maghrib, call to prayer, he would give the azan. No matter what time or if there was fighting or not, he would always go to give his azan. One night while going for the evening azan, he encountered an ambush. By the army's ambush. They martyred him. We waited for him to give the azan, but he did not come. I was waiting for the azan, was he coming or not? After about 10 to 15 minutes without him giving the azan, we went to check. When we went, the man was martyred there. The army and other soldiers had not gone, they had all left. We took the martyr back to our village. The next day, there was a protest. We carried the martyr with us during the protest. There, more people were shot and martyred, and some were wounded. I was also wounded, I was in the hospital myself. His funeral was held here, and he was buried and laid to rest in the soil. Either my son would come back home safely, or he wouldn't. One of our students, named Omid Jan, was also martyred. He called me and said, "Come quickly, your son is lying on the road. He was shot twice in the hand. He's wounded, come." My son ran toward the car. When he picked him up, he was bleeding, he had been martyred. They never got tired or felt weary, alhamdulillah. As a result, Almighty Allah granted this victory to Muslims. All of this happened as a result of jihad and struggle, and without that, it would not have been possible.